everyone, this is Mark. Thanks for watching. This is the ultimate goal of this video, is to get to the point where I can replace the original factory compensator on this 2009 Road King with a Screamin Eagle unit instead. And to do that, the inner primary either has to be removed or you have to use a Dremel tool to grind away a bit of the inner primary to slide the compensator stator rotor off to swap that out with the Screamin Eagle unit instead. So thanks for watching. I'm not sure if this is going to be one big long video or several shorter videos, but I guess we'll see. If you see it's part 1 of 3, then you know. But this is where we're headed.
I've got my get her done pants on. Everybody needs a pair of get her done pants. They don't get washed, they don't get cleaned. The only time you replace them is when you burn these or throw them away. But get her done pants, you can crawl around in the muck and the grime and not worry about it too much. So let's get started, I guess, huh? Okay, the first thing to do is find the drain plug. And unlike my 1997 Road King, this one actually has a hex head. Let's get it started here. Okay, there we go. And at first glance, it looks pretty yucky, doesn't it? Can you see that? And the other thing to do is check this. The end of the plug, there's a magnet. Check the magnet for any debris. Okay, while it's draining, I'm going to take off the inspection cover as well. But let's see, I've got a 5/16 Allen head. Take out this bolt that holds the passenger floorboard on. So I'm going to try to be careful that all this, there we go, doesn't fall off. There's a spacer to kind of space it out away from the bike a bit. And I've inspected the drain plug and cleaned it all up. There was just a little bit of fine metal particles on the magnet. Also, be careful cleaning the rubber O-ring. Check to make sure it doesn't have any cracks in it or pieces of metal that came off the magnet. Okay, to take off the 5 Torx screws, I've got a T25. And guys, if you don't have one of these adapters to use with your power impact drivers or whatnot, these are a real lifesaver, really handy. I can put my sockets on it. I'm going to use an extension, put it in here. And I'm only going to use this to take bolts out. Do not use these to put bolts back in, because you have to torque them down to a certain amount, and you don't know what kind of torque you're getting out of one of these, and it could be well over what the parts are rated for, and you could strip things and really make a mess of things. So I'm going to use this. I've already checked the speed, make sure we're in reverse, and I'm going to move the oil pan back a bit so the drips still drip in it, but the screws won't fall in. And here we go. They do have a washer on them, at least these do. Be careful those washers don't go take a ride. All the screws and washers off. Now it's a matter of convincing the thing to come off. I might have to actually get a screwdriver. Bring the pan over in case it drips. Give it a little coaxing here around the edge. There it goes. That's all it needed. Okay, and as you can see, there's the inside of the inspection cover. It helps to have these long extensions. If you don't, you should. Okay, see, I can get it in there. And again, this is the, what, 5/16? Yeah, 5/16 Allen head. Get the floorboard bolts out. Only these 2 bolts hold it in place, so it's not a huge chore to get it out of the way. What have we got here? Is the other end, I don't remember, is there a nut? There is a nut on the other end of this, sorry. Yeah, and it's just spinning around, okay. Well, we'll tighten that up with the wrench and so forth. But that's out of the way enough so that now I can get that heel coat shifter off. with the 1/4 inch Allen socket. And up in here, there we go. It's got to come completely out because there's a groove in the shaft. I can show you in a minute here. Just wiggle it back and forth, there we go. Okay, so here's that groove I was telling you about that the shifter bolt goes through. So you can't just loosen the bolt and slide it off. The bolt has to come out for that shifter to slide off this shaft because of this groove right here. All right, for the primary cover, let me see what these are. Apparently they are 3/16 Allen head sockets. Let's put that on my drill driver, extension, make sure I'm in reverse, and I am. Okay, and start loosening these up from the outside in. And something to be aware of, these front bolts, as you can see, are extremely long because they go all the way in to the motor and clamp onto that gasket that's inside the inner primary. So make sure you keep track of which ones are the long ones and which ones are the short ones. Not sure about this one until I take it out. And yes, even this one down here is a long bolt. I think that's it though. This one, this one, this one, and this one. You can hear the primary cover's sounding kind of hollow now. It's got one bolt holding it, it's ready to fall, so let's go easy. And it is starting to ooze oil in different places that we don't want it to. But let's go ahead and pull this primary cover off and let the oil dripping begin. Careful with the gasket if you're going to reuse it, that you don't rip it. It's kind of stuck to the cover and stuck to the dowel pins. There we go. All right, the outer primary cover is off. And you can see this is the Hayden spring suspended tensioner. It allows the chain to have some flex to it while keeping it at a bit of a tension. You can wiggle it some, but it's at a constant tension. And the more I think about it, so is the belt. The drive belt is also on this clutch shaft inside here, okay, and that drive belt has a constant tension on this transmission shaft pulling it towards the rear wheel, and now with the Hayden tensioner there's a little bit of tension pulling it straight ahead as well. Will the two counteract each other? I don't know. All right, well, here's the bad news. This is a 2009 Road King touring model, 2009 touring. And in 2007, 8, 9, and 10, this compensator was put in for the new 96 cubic inch motor, which is what this has. And higher. I don't know. They might have used the Screamin Eagle on the 103s or whatnot, you know, for the really hyped up bikes. But the bad news is the spring pack behind these compensators was too weak to take the pounding from the 96 cubic inch motor. And this one, okay, look how much I can move it around just with my fingers before it snubs up against the other side of the ramp. And I shouldn't be able to move this at all. It should be under enough tension that it's not movable. But this one is, as you can see. And that's with the chain providing a little bit of tension. So that's why this is being replaced. The spring pack is just worn out. And when I start the bike, it makes an awful clanging, clunking noise. It sounds like boulders are in there rolling around, smashing into each other. Really makes a racket, especially at the gas station. When I fuel up, shut the bike off, put fuel in, go to start it back up, and it makes an awful clanging and thrashing to start it back up when it's hot. So this compensator is coming out. And to do that, I've also got to take off the stator rotor in the back where the magnets are. And in my other video, I glued the magnets into a replacement that got broken up a bit in the mail. So anyway, enough about that. Okay, the bolts holding in the Hayden tensioner, or the stock automatic tensioner from Harley Davidson, are 1/2 inch. I did put blue Loctite on these when I installed them, so it is giving a little bit of resistance, which is good. There it goes. Okay, let's get this Hayden tensioner out of here. And the chain may have grooved its, well, there it goes. I thought it was going to have a groove in it. Put up a bit of a struggle, but so we get an idea what it looks like. There it is. That is after 5,000 miles of use. As you can see, the roller part of the chain is riding on the plastic. The side of the links have grooved into it a little bit, but not enough to cause concern. As you can see, still got plenty of plastic there. Seems to be wearing as it comes off this side up and over more than the rest, but there's the springs inside. They look good, they don't look broken. So I think it's ready to go right back into service. All right, with my homemade wedge, and this is a torque wrench that doesn't torque very well anymore, so I use it as a breaker bar. Got some paint on it to distinguish it from the real one that I do use. So I'm going to use this one to break it free. And it is regular thread. And it is in there good. That's about good enough to take it out by hand. Let's work on the clutch side. Now it's time to get this snap ring out of the clutch. Very delicate, oh, almost had it. Very delicate operation. There we go. A minor miracle right there. But now with that out, got to loosen up. Oh, that's right, this comes out. Okay, and it says out right on it, right here, stamped right in the metal, O-U-T. So we want this side out. This is the clutch. Okay, here's the rod that actuates the clutch. But, well, I'll just store it away with these two ends together because that's how it came out. Now it's time to use my homemade block. And let's see, this needs to go this way to loosen up. It's reverse threaded. So I'll put my homemade block up here. Let the teeth dig into that. All right, well, I'm not sure that this is the exact size, but it's the only socket I've got to fit it. And that is 1 1/4 inches. It's got a little bit of play in it, but I think it'll do. And it is reverse thread, so I've got to pretend I'm tightening the nut, which will actually take it off. So let's see what happens here. It shouldn't be on there too much. I think the book says 60 to 80 foot-pounds torque. So hopefully it won't take too much to break it free. Grab onto the bike and pull. There we go. Reverse thread, removing the clutch retainer. There it is. There it goes. Whatever it was binding on, it let go. So let's take this nut the rest of the way out, the bolt on the compensator. Again, this is regular thread, so turning it lefty-loosey is normal. And here we go. There's blue factory Loctite. There's the red Loctite I put on there. And we're going to take the compensator apart. Okay. There are the splines that it rides on. And that's what it looks like after 69,000 miles. Okay, little by little, here's the ramp, and these are the ramps that engage. They're kind of shiny, but they're not horribly worn. Here's the back side of the compensator, and you can see where the ramps would ride in here. Really not that horribly worn. It's not so much the compensator sprocket, it's these springs. And look, as you can see, they're just worn out. They just don't have the spring to them that they had to keep that tight. So, and the magnets are in there. Of course, this won't come off with, wow, it's quite a pull to this. I'm just gonna try it just for the heck of it. Yeah, it gets that far and then that's it, folks. Unless you shave off the inner primary, which some people have done, that's as far as you can go. So, but there is quite a magnet to it that pulls it on, so I'll have to be leery of that when I put the replacement on, that it doesn't just slide right in and slam into the end there. If they can take this clutch assembly right off. Whoa, boy, it's got some weight to it. Well, suffice it to say, I've gone to the dark side. The dark side of the bike, that is. In here we have the starter bolts. Here's one, here's another one way over here underneath the wire kind of thing. I'm gonna have to get my extension and see if I can do this. I hope I don't need a universal knuckle to get offset a little bit or anything like that, but see what happens. Okay, well, I've got the Allen socket. This is a 1/4 inch Allen socket that fits the starter bolt heads, and I can just about get straight on this first one with the extension. Let's see if we can break it free. Yeah, here it goes. That's not very much. I've got the battery negative terminal disconnected so we don't short anything out, and here goes the other bolt. So I'll go ahead and take these out and hope that the starter just slides on back. Well, the good news is the starter did slide back away, and there's a little pin there for it to line up on, another one over here. It is just those two bolts that hold the starter in place. The bad news is don't pull it out with your fingers down here because they get pinched. I got my finger a good one down here in the bottom, but anyway, the good news is it appears to be slid back enough so I can check things out on the other side. All right, well, that did it. The starter is loose. I can push it right back away from the inner primary housing, and that means I'm ready to remove the inner primary housing bolts. And Harley Davidson recommends that you do not reuse these bolts because they have sealant on the back side of the heads that once they're torqued down, that sealant will set. But once you take the bolts out and put them back in, chances are the sealant won't seal a second time, and you'll end up with a leak. The oil will be running down the back side of the primary, and you'll wonder where it's coming from. So I have bought a kit that has all new bolts with sealant on them to replace these. I'm seeing there's a hole here for oil to go down in and lube these bearings. We'll see how this whole area looks once I slide this whole inner cover off. So let's get started on loosening those up. And see, this is the, here's the sealant I was talking about that's on the inner parts of these heads. This orange here, it's kind of a silicone type sealant, and that's why they recommend do not reuse these bolts, because the chances of that, the odds of this sealant resealing a second time are not that good. That one was in there really good. And again, I've got a torque spec sheet all printed out when it comes time to put these back in, and also the order in which they are to be torqued. But by the looks, that's all of the bolts. Let's see how much of a fuss this puts up. Oh, wait a second. Just realizes one more step, and that is this shifter linkage back here. I've got to remove it because this whole shifter linkage comes off with the inner primary cover. So if I remove this bolt here, all of this will come out as one unit. Okay, really the only way to get this, and this is a 3/16 Allen socket, is to shift the bike into gear. Oops, there we go. Shift it into gear, and then you can get to it around the edges of the inner primary cover and loosen it up. Here we go. Okay, it threads right into this arm, and we'll have to have the blue Loctite handy for that at some point. I'm going to go ahead and, whoops, there's a washer on the back side. So I'm going to go ahead and thread this back in the shifter arm right here. And it felt like the cover itself is all afloat a little bit. Got some movement to it. I think it's a matter of getting it off the transmission shaft over here. Here it comes. The bearings have slid off the shaft. Hopefully they stay together. I don't really want a big mess here. Here we go. There. They've stayed together. And there's what it looks like. The inner primary cover is off. You can see it mounts to this surface here. Here's the drive belt, which seems rather loose. Maybe it's because the rear wheel is off the ground. Let's check the bearing race. See what that looks like. Well, here's the bearing race right here that the clutch bearings rotate around. And you know what? It's really not that bad. It's smooth. I don't feel any ridges. It's a little rough in here, but from here over it's very smooth. So that must be where the bearings are riding. Has some lube on it. It's moist with lube, so that's a good sign. And we're still in gear, as you can see. All right. Let's check these splines here. I can see there's something right here. And that feels like, yeah, that looks like one of the teeth on the clutch basket. One of the splines on the clutch basket looks like it has broke here on the end. It feels sharp on the edges, and I don't see any more debris, so obviously I'll have to inspect the clutch basket splines to see what they look like. Alright, so with the inner primary cover out of the way, we can now remove the stator rotor cover, and it has have a pull to it from the magnets. Just kind of wiggle it around like before, and little by little it's sliding this way, I think. There it goes. Boy, magnets were pulling it right in. And there's what the inside of it looks like. Everything looks good here. No broken magnets. The stator coils all look good. None of them look dark or burnt, if they did have that kind of a look to them. So, and the wire goes right out through here. So this is your stator wire harness. And there goes the gasket. It has these little pegs on it that go in these holes here and down here. I'd have a new gasket, so I don't have to worry about that when it came with the kit. I've also got gaskets, well, let's see, I've also got an O-ring for the starter up here. There's an O-ring around this that I'm going to replace that came in the kit. And I think that's it, but let me look inside the clutch basket. There might be an O-ring that rides in here on the shaft. I think there was another O-ring in the kit. I'll have to go look. And as far as this goes, I think this is all set. The motor crankshaft
Well, here we are. The compensator stator rotor is off, the clutch is off, the inner primary is off. If you've watched this video up to this point, this is what a dealership or a bike shop would have to do to replace the stator unit, for instance, or the stator compensator, the rotor, and a Screamin Eagle unit, whatever, because originally it can't come off past the inner primary because there's not enough clearance. That's the way it was built from the factory. So if you take it to a dealership or a bike shop and you're like, boy, what is all the labor charge? Well, as you can see, there's a lot to this. It's a lot more involved than just taking off one part and putting another one on. So keep that in mind when you get your bill, that there's a lot of work that goes into this. So give them a little appreciation, okay? All right, we'll continue on in the next video.